Six Squirrel Studios.
See, I see this podcast starting like this.
Yeah.
Bum, 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 bum. Bum, 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 bum.
The drums come in and you know what's happening. It's like bum, 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 bum.
Like a big lumbering thing coming to the ring, like a Mastodon. Bum, 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 bum.
This two-part piece of shit just coming at you full force.
It's time. It is about 4:16 p.m. and this is 10 Pill Pod, where we discuss the life of pro wrestlers. I'm Nick Alexander, and I'm a big fat piece of shit. Beside me, someone who for now has both eyes lodged safely in his face, Michael Loving.
I'm a very kind of in-shape piece of shit.
And of course, we're in the Manning Cave, and I bring to you, from the power of the cornfields in Preston, Iowa, the man scout they call Jake Manning.
The Mastodon, my friends, and I am most certainly not a piece of shit because I'm not Vader.
Oh, we're starting already. All right.
Let's start by prefacing this entire probably series of podcasts that I am the man who's been trying to get the hashtag fuck Vader over for like 5 years. So on the other podcast, on the other channel, if you will, How Did This Get Booked? Almost to the point that fans have jumped in and tweeted at me hashtag fuck Vader, and I see that as like a rallying cry, like I'm starting a revolt or some sort of revolution.
You are the Che Guevara of
yes,
fuck
and
Vader.
that would be my rally cry. Free healthcare and hashtag fuck Vader.
2020.
Universal basic income and hashtag fuck Vader.
So if you can't tell already, this episode is going to be me, 12 angry menning Jake, to convince him that Vader isn't that bad of a guy. We'll see.
This is why when Vader passed, there was discussion between all three of us, like, we should do Vader. And I go, no, why don't we wait?
So I can cool off.
Because there will be parts of this that will not be fun. If I offended you because of that, I understand how you'd be upset. But I feel that I'm coming from a position of a man who has interacted with Vader, seen him treat my friends with disrespect, and seen him treat fans with disrespect. So that is where I am coming from as we go through the entire career of Vader. I will try not to make this much like the unreleased podcast that we had one time, where it just turned into one member of this podcast team just going, fuck him, and then not engaging in a conversation. I will try my best to not make this an unreleased episode, and I will be as fair when I need to be fair, but when I need to drop the hammer or drop the Vader bomb, if you will, with Vader gloves on, because we all know that's when I'm at my most dangerous, is when I have my Vader gloves on.
And this is the divide on Vader. This is the Dr. Jekyll, Mr. Hyde that was Vader, that Jake Manning is a professional wrestler. And I am
allegedly. Let's start with let's just get comfortable using allegedly in this podcast. So Jake Manning, allegedly a professional wrestler.
Even Micah?
So fans are like, oh God, we love Vader. We this is gonna run throughout the whole next 2 episodes that we're gonna do on Vader. Fans love Vader. He was awesome. He was crazy aggressive. And then the pro wrestlers who had to deal with his shit, not so much. Mm-hmm. Before we jump in, let's talk about our sources. Aside from our memories, our perhaps bad experiences, our Googling, YouTubing, searching the stickiest parts of the internet, a lot of this info comes from Vader's Hannibal shoot, which is a much older, much more chilled out Vader, and Vader's 2000-ish RF video shoot. RF video. I hope this shoot interview doesn't get in the way of all this background noise we're trying to record.
That's my favorite joke yet.
So here we go. Leon White.
Old Leon, even though he was a baby at the time we were discussing, you must refer to him as Old Leon.
Old Leon was born May 14th, 1955 in Linwood, California. He was an 11-pound, 10-ounce baby who had to be born 2 months early because he was so big.
And as Leon put it, he was bragging right out of the vagina. He said, I could have been a record baby if you give me the full term. I could have been a record baby.
Leon grew up in Compton like a rapper. They were the White family in South Central LA and also the White family in South Central LA. Leon's father was in the U.S. Navy, and apparently he invented the electric hoist, probably to lift his fat fucking baby.
Oh.
Whose side are you on? I thought.
was like, wait, are you doing Jake bits?
Wait a minute. Is that my script that you're reading? I have my outline right here.
So his dad sold this invention, making the family a little bit of money, which made it possible for them to move straight out of Compton, first to Anaheim, and then to settle down in Bell, California.
Oh, so Vader was a rich kid. Oh, that's going to endear him so much more to me.
There, Leon attended Bell High School, and at Bell High School, he competed in shot put, common ground, Jake Manning. He also wrestled, and he played football.
Oh, did he talk about how he could have been going to the Olympics in shot putting? I'm sure he would probably say that. I know someone in my family actually went to the Olympics in shot putting. But Vader, I guess you could just talk about going to the Olympics in shot putting, and that's good enough in old Leon's world.
All right, this can be a three-parter.
Leon was good enough at the foosball that he was recruited to play offensive line by over 40 D1 schools and eventually chose the University of Colorado, who back in the day was a powerhouse at football. There, Leon was a All-American, and he'd even won a Big 8 championship. He was so good on the O-line that he was projected to go in the first round of the 78 NFL draft, but a few weeks before the draft, he ruptured his patellar tendon. With teams knowing that Vader would have to spend his entire rookie year sitting out, he was still drafted in the third round, 80th overall, by his home team, the LA Rams.
What's your source on the fact that he was going to be in the first round? Vader?
It's fucking Vader.
No,
That's what I thought. Okay. All right. I want to be clear.
We need to go further. If you listen to him, he was going to go first or second or third in the fucking draft.
Okay.
Very first, second, or third. He was a lottery pick.
But I said, and that's why I structured it this way to say that even though he was terribly hurt, they still drafted
it's
him.
true. I mean, that is a big deal.
Okay, he got terribly hurt, and he still got third round. I'll give him respect there.
Yeah,
but I would love to see his Mel Kiper report. That's all I want to say.
But it is the first in a long line of Vader being like, man, I'm pretty fucking cool.
After making first team all-injury reserve his rookie year, Vader's second year would lead to him playing in Super Bowl 14, losing to Terry Bradshaw and the Pittsburgh Steelers.
What you just said is total bullshit.
What do you mean?
I did all the research. I looked up everything. If you go to NFL.com, if you go to Pro Football Reference, you look up the roster on that Super Bowl. You look up the Rams. You look up starters. You look up reserves. You look up the list of the players that did not play. No Leon White. No Leon White. No Lee Allen. No Allen. I like everything. I had Jake is doing a Home Alone moment. He's like, what?
What? You mean that Leon White, Vader stretched the truth?
But it's so crazy. If you look up every Vader article about his death or anything, ESPN, they will credit him like maybe he was on a written roster. Maybe he was still like written, but he was not listed on the roster as a substitute, as a starter, as anything for the Super Bowl. Look up anything you want. I when he said that, it's like when you hear a little bit of bullshit from someone and then you're like, what about this other stuff he's saying? You look it up, there is no Leon White. You can't find stats on him anywhere. This is the thing where maybe I'm wrong.
Oh, no, I think you're absolutely right.
But I'm saying anyone out there that knows more than me, show me the hardcore facts that he had so-and-so. Because, I mean, he was like a center, so it's like pancake blocks or whatever. You know, there's not many stats for offensive linemen.
I mean, he could have been on the practice squad.
Yeah, I mean,
he could have. There could have been a practice squad. Like they might not have kept record of practice squad, and he's still part of the still a valuable member, part of the team.
No,
so I
look at Jake.
I will give you that.
Yeah.
I'm not saying he's not involved in the organization whatsoever.
No, I don't believe that. I agree with you 100%.
But as far
the
as
whole Super Bowl urban legend shit, everything I looked up, there is no evidence to support it.
okay,
I am saying it's bullshit right now.
Literally, fuck you. In Vader's 4th year in the NFL, he re-ruptured his patellar tendon, ending his legendary, all-time great football career.
Hey, he made it in the NFL. You got to give him that.
Yeah, I mean, that's pretty good.
yeah, he was there. He was on the lot, as they say.
Yeah. On one message board, like hardcore deep wrestling nerd stuff, there's like apparently in the original broadcast you could see him on the sidelines. That seems like just shit people say to say it. But I don't know. Maybe I'm wrong. Someone send me evidence. I would honestly love to be surprised.
Is it a Mandela effect?
I mean, totally.
Was Leon White on the sideline for the Super Bowl? And is it Berenstain or Berenstain Bears?
I do like your theory that he was on the practice squad. When you win an NFC championship or an AFC championship or a Super Bowl, everyone gets a ring. Practice squad, the front office, I don't know, anyone in that organization. So he has a ring. So maybe he was on the practice squad.
It's still crazy, though, because even, like, in the shoot interviews, they say it's like, so you played in the Super Bowl? And he was like, yeah, blah, blah, blah. But he doesn't give details. He's very generalized. And it's just, I smell a lot of bullshit. And it feels like a lot of bullshit when I did the research.
Oh, thank you very much for doing the research, F. Lee Bailey. I appreciate your help in this case.
After becoming the Ryan Khalil of his time, Leon would leave the NFL. He got into real estate. Imagine those billboards. But he soon got bored of work, so after being introduced to the Gagne family at a show, Leon decided to try wrestling. Apparently, AWA would sometimes run shows down in, Denver and Colorado, so Vader wasn't like driving up to Minnesota just to, see wrestling shows. The story goes that after his initial introduction to, I believe it was Greg Gagne, Vader went to an AWA show and just waltzed into the AWA locker room and said he wanted a job, which I think still today, if a non-wrestler wandered into the locker room, they would not leave very happy. But this was the 80s. He's lucky he wasn't immediately beaten to death, especially since that locker room had Bruiser Brody in it.
Well, fun fact, that's actually how Charlotte Flair got her job.
Wow, really?
She was, I believe, like the Hall of Fame. Looked right at Triple H and was like, hey, when are you guys going to hire me? And they hired her, and it worked out.
Yeah, she is fucking awesome.
That's like my mom always said, it doesn't hurt to ask.
Leon ended up being trained by Brad Riggins, who was an AWA wrestler as well as an Olympian wrestler. Leon said he showed up to train and he was just going to like throw Brad around, show him what he's made of. And like the dad from F is for Family, the 5'8", 240-pound Brad put the 6'4", 350-pound Leon literally through a fucking wall.
It's amazing when you learn that technique beats strength.
Yeah, I remember that from the little short amount of MMA I did. Being the teacher his son was like fucking 15, and this was like me in my prime. I was like in the weight room every day, 6'2", 225. And he tossed me around like I was a piece of shit.
Yeah, ragdoll.
He was like a brown belt in Brazilian jiu-jitsu, and just I could do nothing to him. Yeah, like I could have had a gun and he just would have fucking submitted me somehow using the gun. Like
without bullets, he would have unloaded the bullets and then made you submit.
It was nuts. How technique just wins.
But not just to discredit, oh, Brad just knew his stuff. No, Brad Riggins was a tough SOB. Right. Like he trained a lot of those guys that came through towards the end there in AWA. He was a liaison to New Japan Wrestling. He was a very well-respected amateur wrestler. Well, I think he qualified for the Olympics the year that the U.S. team boycotted in Moscow. I believe 1980 was the year he qualified, which was also the year that my uncle qualified as well. My uncle actually did go to the Olympics in shot putting, not just said he could have, unlike Vader. So just to remind you.
So using his AWA connections, Vader got his first wrestling work, wrestling as Baby Bull and Bull Power for Vern Gagne. Baby Bull being a old football nickname. If I can explain AWA Vader, imagine if instead of diddling himself in front of people and doing stand-up comedy, Louis C.K. wrestled in Minnesota. And just like Louis C.K., Vader soon earned a reputation of being too stiff for people.
Okay,
Let's appreciate the too stiff part of that joke. That was well written.
I didn't even pick it up.
No, you need to pick that
I was
up,
too ready
put
to
it
do
over
mine,
your
the
shoulder,
whole stiff
carry
thing.
it a mile,
God.
pick up some water with it, and then walk it back.
But it's so true. You look at him there and he's like, oh God, it's Louis.
Another thing to point out here is that Vader is breaking into the wrestling business around 29 or 30 years old, which is pretty old to decide you want to be a professional at something new. So, that's good, right?
Oh, good. So he's just like those millions of guys that are like, you know what, DDP was a real inspiration to me. And they are like the worst guys at training, and they like afraid to like bump. And rightfully so. You're a 47-year-old man. You're a 47-year-old man. What are you doing wrestling training? Just appreciate it, or just be a referee or promote a
DDP
show.
Brooklyn was managing, right?
Yeah, or do. There's all a multitude of things. Don't be like, DDP's my real inspiration, and I want to start wrestling at 47 years old.
Since Vader was so physically enormous, he was able to pretty much climb up the card fast. And in '85, Vader had his first matches against Bruiser Brody, which explains why he would learn to work so stiff, because sometimes Bruiser would show up to work and decide, fuck it, wrestling's real today.
Oh, I thought you were going to say, and that's where you learn how to be a bully. Because as much as I love Bruiser Brody and I respect him as far as being an original and kind of that last outlaw, that last renegade of professional wrestling, he does have a reputation for being a bully.
But Jake, some people are listening. It's like, you're just a snowflake, man. That's how it was back then.
Don't get me wrong. I've gone through my bullies. I definitely have. And I've been a bully myself. But I've decided not to continue the cycle on any further.
It hasn't been your entire fucking career.
Yes, and then the towards the end of my career, I have become nicer because I've been more appreciative of the things that I get, as opposed to being bitter and angry. Thus, I have stopped the bully behavior that I have, and I have come around and made amends and done everything I can to open doors and give back to people to something that has given me so much. Which is the opposite of the topic of discussion today.
So at AWA, Leon was able to learn and grow, and Leon Baby Bull White would even get a shot at Stan Hansen's championship, and that is someone he will forever be linked to, as you'll see. In May of '86, Otto Vance plucked Vader out of AWA to wrestle for his promotion, Catch Wrestling Association, and there he toured Austria and Germany using the name Bull Power. March 22nd, 1987, he won his first championship, the Catch Wrestling World Heavyweight Championship, ending Otto Vance's almost 9-year title run. Back in his own home of Denver, Colorado, he held the title for about 4 months before losing it back to Otto in Austria.
Just to remind everybody, this is the organization where they booked everything, kind of like a boxing match where there was rounds, you got dropped, there was a 10 count. It was very unusual, but it was something interesting.
It was also where they did those tournaments where you hear a lot of the guys talk about they would go over for Germany or Austria and they go over for the tournaments. And then you just be wrestling all of these matches over a long period of time. It was always good money. It was always like this nice trip. You slept in a caravan. You were wrestling every night, and you really learned how to wrestle.
Vader would trade the title with Otto a few times before Vance retired, leaving the title vacant. Then Bull Power would win a tournament, making him a 3-time champion before dropping the belt and leaving for Japan. Now, Japan is a serious crossroads for Vader because he was originally supposed to go work for Giant Baba in All Japan. New Japan and All Japan got in a bit of a bidding war over him, and Inoki finally convinced Baba that he already had Bruiser and Hansen, and he paid to get Vader. Inoki needed Leon because he already had a gimmick lined up for him to go, a warrior from Japanese folklore, Big Van Vader. Apparently, Sid and Ultimate Warrior were considered for this gimmick, but Vader's so Vader, I can't imagine anyone else being Vader. December 27th, 1987, Vader would debut facing the legendary Antonio Inoki After some punches, a tree of woe, a football shoulder tackle, and a power slam, Vader beat Inoki in 2 minutes and 49 seconds. This would be like if when Jericho jumped ship from WCW, he showed up on Raw, walked in and just clean pin squashed Austin and Rock in their primes. It was nuts.
Well, and that was always the thing with Inoki. He had a long history of you bring in a monster, you feed him to Inoki, and Inoki beats him. And there's always this feeding him different monsters and with different incarnations and different things with different levels of success. There's that
Like
great
Andre was like,
yeah, Andre was perfect for that, and also there's that one with the great Antonio, where he gets his
that infamous shoot fight.
that infamous
God,
where
so good.
Inoki just beats the crap out of this guy and doesn't care anymore. But they would bring in like different people all the time, and Inoki would always conquer over the monsters, which just solidified the folklore of Antonio Inoki. So the fact that you're bringing in Vader, and Vader is squashing the conquering hero, is a big deal.
You can hear the audience gasp. Like the recount, and it's one of those things like, did that just happen? Like, did Vader just pin Inoki right there?
Speaking of the Japanese audience, who is usually so polite and quiet at shows that it is distracting, they literally rioted. So suck on that, ECW. They set their seat cushions on fire, throwing them into the ring at Vader, which got New Japan banned from Sumo Hall for a few years.
In the video, you kind of see ideas of this, but it doesn't really happen. I heard a lot of stuff happen in the hallways and stuff. Just another a sidebar that I found very interesting. Vader was brought in by a manager, Beat Takashi, who created a stable with Masa Saito. And Beat Takeshi, you might remember him as one of the hosts from Most Extreme Challenge on Spike TV. He was also one of the most esteemed actors, movie directors, comedians, artists, Renaissance men in all of fucking Asia. When I learned that Beat Takeshi had a part in Vader's history, I was like, of course he did, because that man is involved in fucking everything. Vader was originally billed in some press releases as Big Ben Bader.
And probably still listed as such in our video match listings today.
RF video. Did you turn off your cell phone? Well, turn it back on. All right. So Vader.
I need more RF video jokes.
they make me so mad.
I love them, but they make me so mad.
So Vader was given this giant badass helmet molded in the shape of a mastodon that blew smoke, technically making Vader the inventor of vaping.
I did a little research on this. I was digging deep. I don't know if Jake knows. There is a commenter on the Wrestling Classics message board. It goes by the name Sharms, who's Steve Harms. He worked with WCCW back in the day. Apparently worked with like post-production, maybe voiceover stuff. This is the story that Steve has an in-depth about Vader's Mastodon helmet. Here's the story on the mask. The one that Leon used in Japan was mechanically based on the metric system. In order to use it in the States, it would have to have been necessary to have a separate set of tools to do the interior adjustments. So Leon received permission to duplicate the mask at his own expense with the US measurements. He did that, but it was a difficult process. The mask needed someone to trigger the smoke. In Japan, it was usually a wrestler named, I think, Big Cat. Leon, who I knew from his AWA days as Bull Power, called and asked if I could be available on weekends to operate the mask in WCW. I was paid $350 a night and the rental car, which had to be a van to transport the mask and its case. The smoke, CO2 gas shot from 2 small canisters, was triggered by a remote control. It was a fucking nightmare. We couldn't fly with loaded canisters, so in each town we had to find a place to fill them. Companies that supplied CO2 usually didn't have the equipment to fill the small canisters. So we usually just started going to the local Pepsi or Coke bottling plants to get it done. While Leon got ready for his match, I would test the gimmick and make sure the remote was working. When it was Leon's time to go, I made my way to the ringside area with the remote beneath my jacket, hidden or whatever. He'd do his thing, and at the right time, I'd set it off. He'd walk around with it for a minute, scream at the crowd, you know the angle, then hand it to me. I'd take it backstage, pack it up, and wait for Leon, and off we'd go to the next town. I did this over the course of about 6 months. Eventually, I found out it was taking up too much time, and while the money was a nice bonus, it wasn't enough to make me want to stay out there. They tried to use different guys on the gimmick, but the logistics still had to be taken care of. Maintenance and finding the CO2 canisters was a pain. They tried some different options. Klondike Bill, head of the WCW ring crew, tried it, but he couldn't get it to work. So they eventually stopped using the smoke, but still used the mask. Leon didn't want to deal with the mask by himself, so that was the end of it. I know Leon had a reputation, but I traveled with him, drove the van with him, most meals together, and can say that he was always a gentleman and fun to be with. Like all wrestlers, his professional mindset was based on insecurity and sometimes the pressure of maintaining his position in 2 or 3 promotions at once, which was too much.
Yeah, Jake, this guy with the fucking mask says he's a good guy. So after the whole Inoki thing, Vader spent a lot of time tagging with Masa Saito, breaking off once in a while for singles matches and having a feud with Riki Choshu. But on April 24th, 1989, Vader would enter an 8-man tournament for the vacant IWGP title, winning the tournament, becoming the first Gaijin or Peckerwood to hold the title.
Oh.
1 month later, May 25th, Vader lost the title to Russian Salman Hashimikov.
Hashimikov.
Some fucking Russian. He would drop the belt to Chosu, and in July, which led to Vader beating Choshu, and August, making him a 2-time IWGP champion. So before we get into our next match, I have to give the first ever 10-bell pod trigger warning, and it's not for any of our listeners. It's not so some PC extremist doesn't suicide bomb my career. It is for our very own, our tender, our loving Jake Manning, because I know that Jake is super grossed out by eye stuff. And we're about to talk about eye stuff.
Ooh, eye stuff.
I have an issue. I've never been able to wear contacts. I wore contacts for 2 weeks. It was awful. It was horrible. I can't.
Do you know the origin story of this? Like, is there a weird childhood something?
Oh, do you like touching your eyeballs? I feel like you should never touch your eyeballs.
I do, like, I've had contacts since I was
don't pick your eye.
Don't talk about stuff.
Well, your finger went towards your eye, and I'm just no. None of that.
But serious question. There's nothing that, like, first weird old memory that made you go, "Hoo."
Other than the fact that I'm a human being and I don't think things should be jammed in my eye, and I want to continue to see.
I'm not going to give a good answer.
This is a snake argument all over again.
Imagine like a snake with a big fucking eye staring at Jake.
I'm shaking my head. I'm shaking my head.
He's just shaking his head because his anger can't do anything else.
I had to verbally tell you I was shaking my head so you let you know how angry that I am, that I cannot even express words in that moment until
I just have this funny image of like a python with one of those googly eyes that just kind of shake around. Okay, Jake's done with this bit.
I'm over here now. I'm over here. Let me do a radio bit where I walk out the door. I'll do that and actually do it, not a bit.
So on February 10th, 1990, Vader faced Stan Hansen at an All Japan versus New Japan Supercard show. And Stan Hansen would break Vader's whole face. Like all the places in which a face can be broken, Stan Hansen broke them. Before the match, Vader comes down in his sweet-ass Vader helmet. Stan Hansen, being blind as fuck, swings his bull rope at him, accidentally hitting the mask, breaking Vader's nose before he ever stepped into the ring. Blind ass Stan has no clue he did this, but Vader's obviously pretty pissed off. He hops into the ring and starts legit beating the shit out of Stan. And I'm sure Stan is like, whoa, this little shit is shooting on me. Especially with the whole New Japan, All Japan rivalry. For all he knows, the fucking Akuza put a hit out on him. So Stan, being a grown-ass man, starts swinging back at Vader. So these two giants are just beating the hell out of each other until Stan thumbs Vader in his eye, causing the eye to pop out of its socket. So Vader at the time wore this like lucha mask. He pulls it off and his eye's just a dangling. He pushes it back in, which swells his eyes shut. And these two psychopaths just finish the match anyways.
What did I give it to Stan? Like, he's still a brute, but he doesn't Like, he still beats the shit out of Vader, but he doesn't, like, attack it. Like, hey, there's an injury. I should sell it for the crowd. Like, he doesn't go towards it. So I give Stan that. But, yeah, Vader talks about how his eye swelled so much that it held the eye in place even though it was out. So thank God for our bodies swelling up.
You doing okay over there, Jake?
Yeah, I'm all right.
Jake doesn't have to comment on this. It's fine. He's just recuperating. They're in the corner, and they're beating the shit out of each other, and you're waiting for that moment of the eye pop. And then there's a weird edit in every video clip I found. And then Vader has Hanson in a weird armbar, and then he gets up and he's like, "Oh shit!" And then he takes it off, and the crowd, just the collective 50,000 people that go, "Oh!"
It's so gross.
is beautiful, and it's just like, that is not how an eye is supposed to look. But you don't really see the moment, and I don't know why they cut. It makes me, I don't know. It's weird, but goddamn.
Vader and Stan eventually fight up towards the entrance way, and the match ends in a double count out. After the match, Vader would have to have all the surgeries to more or less have his entire face replaced with metal, rendering his new metal helmet redundant.
He is a cyborg.
Not long after the Stan Hansen match, the by God blue chipper All-American out of the University of Colorado calls up Jim Ross, and he starts doing sporadic shots for WCW.
How'd that conversation go? Where he's like, "My name is Leon. I used to play football." "Goddamn, kid, you're hired."
Sold.
Vader's first match for old Teddy was 1990's Great American Bash, when the 399-pound Vader flew a plane all the way from parts unknown to squash the Z-Man, whose superpower is ending the alphabet.
Give it up to Z-Man for being the squash match on Vader's first match in WCW. And Rick Rude's Halloween Phantoms. Z-Man's always like, "Hey, you debuting, you pretty badass in a different organization? I got you."
I got you, bro.
Pay me, brother.
Hey, if you're down for a bisexual three-way, I'm down.
Vader's next WCW match would be February of 91 at Wrestle War, where he'd face Stan Hansen in an actual worked match, ending in a double DQ.
It's only 6 minutes, but the highlight is Dusty and JR on commentary, and when Hansen and Vader go outside and start beating the shit out of each other, they do it all in the vicinity of Dusty and JR, and JR is legitimately losing his shit. Dusty's doing bits, so he's like, "Oh, they knocked over my Cavossier. I mean my water." But yeah, it's a good quick 6-minute brawl.
Vader's next WCW match wouldn't be until 91's Halloween Havoc, where he was part of the godforsaken Chamber of Horrors match, where they murdered a man.
The debut of the referee cam, one of the worst gimmicks, I think, I don't know, ever. I'm stressing ever. And then I forgot that for the finish, when Abdullah gets put in the electric chair, Rick Steiner belly-to-belly suplexes him into the chair. It's so stupid.
Oh, I thought he was just setting him in there. He was belly-to-belly.
JR calls it. He said, he belly-to-bellied him into the chair.
And then he put the plastic that's in the inside of plastic baseball helmets that you get at the Minor League Baseball parks, and they put that on him, and that's how he got electrocuted, is by putting plastic on his hair.
Another great line from this is JR going, "Rick Steiner's got that chainsaw."
To end Vader's kind of random run of WCW matches, Vader would be part of 91 Starrcade's Lethal Lottery Battle Bowl.
Oh my fuck.
So for this pay-per-view, you were chosen randomly to be part of a tag team match, where if you won, you would be part of a 2-ring battle royal, where you had to throw everyone into ring number 2. Then in ring number 2, throw everyone to the floor. Then the winner of ring number 2 would face the last man standing from ring number 1. WCW.
It is the dumbest fucking battle royal gimmick I think I've ever seen.
You guys laugh, but you guys won't be laughing when people love it when it's on AEW.
That's probably true.
Because I think is it one of the trademarks that Cody just purchased?
Oh, was it?
I don't know. I'm speculating. I'm speculating.
I know he got bashed at the beach.
He got the bunkhouse stampede.
Yeah, which I did like that he clarified. He goes, "I'm not doing this so I can do these. I'm just buying this up to buy my dad's work."
Yeah,
and that I appreciate.
I give it up to Cody.
Vader and Mr. Hughes would qualify for the actual Battle Bowl. In the Battle Royal, Vader would be eliminated by a double clothesline from Steamboat and Sting before Sting wins the whole damn thing. Back over in Japan, January 91, Vader would have his last run as IWGP champion, beating Tatsumi Fujinami before Vader lost it back to Fujinami March 4th. In 92, Vader and Crusher Bam Bam Bigelow would get a run with the IWGP Tag Team Championships, and they were such an awesome tag team. We kind of talked about this in Bam Bam's episode. Just two monsters that could move and work, and they were good.
You mean one monster that can move and work? One monster that could just move?
I'm going to step in and say they both could work. The Steiner Brothers match, good. The Saito matches. But yeah, Bam Bam is definitely more agile.
No, I was talking about the working aspect, like taking care of guys.
I agree. I'm still going to defend a little bit.
Okay.
But not enough to make you mad.
It's been 7 or 8 minutes
That's
since
true.
I've had a dig at old Leon right now. I kind of got slowed down with all that eye talk earlier, but I'm back in. I'm back in.
So in June of 92, Vader and Bam Bam dropped the tag belts to the Steiners as Vader needed time off for a knee injury, and that led to a dispute with the New Japan front offices, which led to Vader leaving to primarily focus on WCW. After leaving Japan and joining WCW full-time, 92 would be kind of a breakout year for Vader in America. You know who else had a breakout year in America in 1992? Billy Ray Cyrus with Achy Breaky Heart.
Oh my God. I will find the picture. There is a moment, and I think it's a Sting Vader match, where there's a young girl, probably about 12 years old. She is cheering. I think she's holding the Sting sign, and she is throwing her arms up, and she has a Billy Ray Cyrus Achy Breaky Heart shirt on, and I actually marked it down to get a picture of that. So the fact you're mentioning that right now,
that is very creepy.
It's weird.
So Vader was managed by Harley Race, who Vader liked and respected. Harley taught him a lot on the road together, and I think Harley is such an awesome manager. But I love when the old school guys manage, because kayfabe is like so beaten into them that their reactions to stuff are so genuine and like really good.
I was too seeing like Harley run in and take a backdrop for like no reason other than just for Harley wanting to take a bump is the best thing ever.
When I was watching all this stuff, it was just like, it wasn't just one big bump during a match. Like Harley was just bumping his ass the whole time.
It's the only thing that makes Vader's matches watchable for me.
Wow, okay.
Because I know I'm going to get to see Harley Race just bumping like a fool, because I know this Joker ain't.
And he also knew where the camera was and the mic, and he would just scream stuff to make the commentators put it over even more. He was good at that too.
Mm-hmm.
Vader would spend the bulk of his first year in WCW feuding with Sting over the World Heavyweight Championship. They'd start doing house shows. Eventually, they'd meet up at the 92 Great American Bash, which is a good match. After Sting cracks his noggin on the ring post, Vader powerbombs him and wins his first ever WCW championship.
The pain game has been taught. The lesson has been learned.
I don't know what's more impressive, Vader squashing Inoki or Vader getting a clean pin over early 90s WCW Sting.
It's pretty amazing.
This would be a very short title reign for Vader, as his lingering knee injury from Japan would force him out of action. And on August 2nd, 1992, Vader would face Ron Simmons at a house show in Baltimore, Maryland. And after Ron power slammed him, he beat Vader, becoming the first ever African-American heavyweight champion.
And that making it the only decent thing that Vader ever did in his entire career.
If anyone wants to go back and watch this match, watch for the black dude probably 3 or 4 rows back when Ron Simmons hits the power slam before there's even a count. He gets up from his seat and runs to the fucking front row. He knows what that power slam means, and to watch him go through the 1, 2, 3, this dude loses his fucking mind. He jumps up, he braces on the guardrail, and does a split in midair. He is so happy, and representation matters. He's through the roof. It's beautiful.
It's like when you see little girls dressed as Bailey at WrestleMania, and they're sitting front row and they're just weeping like that. I mean, that's the perfect example.
When I rewatched it, it was just like all the being heavy into movies and movie theater shit. It was just all the kids that dressed up for Black Panther stuff. And they're like, "Fuck yeah!" And it was just the dude is over the moon.
So in September, Vader got knee surgery, and he wouldn't return until 92's Halloween Havoc. That Halloween Havoc, Vader would defend the United States Championship against Nikita Koloff. And if you're like, hey, when did Vader win the U.S. title? He didn't. Rick Rude was champion, but he had a match that night for the NWA Heavyweight Championship, and he didn't want to wrestle twice. So he got his lawyers to threaten legal action on WCW, allowing him to have a surrogate on his behalf. And carrying that U.S. title baby to term would be Vader.
I just like to point out at the beginning of the match that JR spouts off about how Vader has a Super Bowl ring. And then the co-commentator, Jesse Ventura, questions him. Is like, I don't think the Rams ever won a Super Bowl. And the JR was like, well, if you'd call him a loser, maybe so. And then Jesse pushes the issue. It's like, well, I just don't think they did it. And it gets brushed off. But I just like to point out that no matter when, Jesse is always a truth speaker.
Hell yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
2020.
Let me tell you how Jesse said it.
I was about to ask.
I don't buy it.
For this match, a clean-shaven Rick Rude walks his belt out to the ring with Vader. A clean-shaven Rick Rude. Jake, why would God allow this to happen?
I don't know. I mean, we all face tragedies and struggles in our life, and
sometimes you get evidence in your mustache that you just got to get rid of the whole thing.
I need to get rid of whatever DNA is in here immediately, or else I'm going to lose my kids.
Before the match, head official Ole Anderson, without a doubt, says a lot of racist stuff and then bans Rick Rude and Harley Race from ringside. Vader and Nikita have a very good, very physical non-DQ match. After a Vader powerbomb, Vader defends Rick Rude's U.S. title. Now, the internet says that Vader ended Nikita Koloff's career in this match. However, you jabroni marks don't know a work when you work yourselves to a shoot. Vader says there is no way he hurt Koloff, and he just wanted to collect on his Lloyd's of London insurance policy. In Nikita's shoot, he says that sure, he tweaked his neck in the match with Vader, but Nikita's neck always hurt him. Doctors told him at 33 that he had the neck of a 55-year-old man. They told him he was at a risk of serious and permanent injury if he kept wrestling. Not only that, but Volkov also had a hernia from lifting Vader, and for those reasons, he retired, collecting that sweet-ass Lloyd's of London money.
So Vader caused the retirement of Nikita Koloff.
No.
You're arguing with that man? What's wrong with you? Real quick, I just want to point out a pet peeve of mine that I have in wrestling. There's a particular spot where Vader does his second turnbuckle splash, hits Nikita. Nikita kicks out of the second turnbuckle splash. JR loses his shit on Nikita. I've never seen anybody kick out of that. And this pet peeve was born with Tony Schiavone in the late 90s on Nitro.
Don't you sass-mouth Tony Schiavone.
When he would claim to never see anything before, yet it had happened 2 weeks ago. JR saw and called Ron Simmons kicking out of this very same fucking splash in Ron Simmons' title win. And it's just stuff like that that drives me nuts. Does anybody have any little...
Do you have any idea how much fucking wrestling Jim Ross has probably seen?
I don't care.
He has forgotten.
He's telling a story.
He's forgotten more wrestling than you'll ever see, my friend.
It's just like trying to bullshit the audience, and that always bothers me, man.
It doesn't annoy me as much as Jim Ross bringing up their fucking Division III bench warming linebacker career every goddamn match.
Hey, you gotta bring up the shoot stuff with the work stuff.
So speaking of hurting people, let's talk about the infamous match, November 7th, 1992.
Jake's rubbing his hands together like a diabolical James Bond villain.
When Vader would face Joe Thurman and T.A. McCoy, this is the match where Vader allegedly broke the back of Joe Thurman. Vader is rough in this match, but he's making his comeback. All right, they're putting him against two men.
But it's normal roughing for him.
Yeah. They're trying to show how badass Vader is. So of course he's gonna rough up two '90s job guys. They know why they're there. So Vader hits Thurman with a chokeslam and a powerbomb, and on both, Thurman lands, taking the impact on his neck and shoulders. Neither look that hard to me, but in this spot, who's responsible for the landing, just as a wrestler?
I have some information specifically. We can ask in general terms, or we can get in specifics about Joe Thurman.
Okay, just from the uneducated, maybe kind of know, not in the know like Jake, but just uneducated.
When you take a powerbomb, who's responsible to take the powerbomb?
Well, I mean, I will always take responsibility for every bump that I take, and I will make sure that I know exactly where I'm going to be at all moments in time. Now, I have been in there with some guys that have said that their favorite wrestler is Psycho Sid and Big Van Vader, and they have not taken care of me.
Yeah.
And even though I have tried my best to take my own bump. Now, if you want to get in specifically about the case of Joe Thurman, I will open my legal documents and eyewitness accounts from one Mr. Number One George South.
Oh boy.
Who's there on this occasion.
Wow.
Also a well-known jobber himself, enhancement talent, so he can speak to the situation of Joe Thurman. Now, this is a time where they just need a different face. You know, a lot of these job guys, like sometimes they would be pulling guys from gas stations and on the way to the show. I mean, that's legendary.
What would they pay them?
A nightly thing. It could be $100, could be a couple $100.
Get squashed by Vader, get
$100, just take a couple bumps. You know how to do this. It's a lot of like indie guys that just knew how to take a couple bumps. Guys that trained with George and Italian Stallion. You know, guys like that. And for the most part, things would come out okay. And also too, like it was pretty high that, you know, if you're a job guy, you'd wrestle like a Dr. Death or a Road Warriors or a Big Van Vader. And, you know, those guys knew what they were going to do and they didn't want to hurt anybody.
Right.
You know, Dr. Death, just as big as Big Van Vader, and he'd wrestle job guys and do what you need to do, get in, thank you very much for the match, whatever.
Yeah.
Vader more or less saw those guys as just meat he could just destroy. But to make matters worse, to Vader's credit in this sense, George describes Joe Thurman as somebody who had something off about them. Like he just looked like a guy that shouldn't have been there wrestling. Like it didn't seem right.
He just wasn't experienced. He
just wasn't experienced enough. He probably shouldn't have been in this situation. And as George always described, you always avoided Vader. He was always the one guy, like if you saw your name on the booking sheet with Vader, you're like, oh.
Yeah, so many people said.
But at the same time, too, like you never did that with Dr. Death. You never did that with the Road Warriors. Steiner Brothers, after they came back from the WWF, they were fine. But, you know, they would always be those guys, but definitely Vader was the guy, like, I don't know how this is going to turn out.
Should I quit before?
Yeah, and then you put in a guy that really didn't know what he was doing at the same sense. So it's both parties are at fault in this matter. One thing that sticks out from this situation is the conversation that Harley Race had with Vader after this all happened. So apparently, from what I've heard, when this happened, they had to take the ropes off and they had to stop taping, and that's like a big deal because that's like money.
Right.
And apparently, in the back, Vader was crying, and when I say crying, I'm using quotation marks.
Bob Cook confirmed the crying episode.
Okay. I've heard a couple other people talk about him crying, but making it more of a show. Like, oh, I am remorseful that I hurt somebody, but really, in fact,
That's
I'm
like
not.
Some conspiracy theory shit, though.
Yeah, objection.
Right?
Objection.
Yeah, right?
I've heard some other instances where Leon is putting on a show a lot of times, and it kind of jives, and most people saw it as he was crying, to the point that Harley Race walked up to him and said, "What are you crying for?" He goes, "You're just going to hurt somebody next week, and you're not going to give a crap about them."
That's a bold statement.
It's Harley Race. And he goes, what are you going to do? And he goes, "You're just going to do to the next guy, so what?" quit your fake crying. And then Harley Race even made the comment, and I believe this might be, summarized. It's not a direct quote, but I believe the words that Harley Race said to Leon after he yelled at him was, I'm going to try and say it in my best Harley Race voice. Leon, I love you, but if you did that to me, I'd kill you. I don't care if it would take me 10 years or not, but I would come back and kill you.
And he would.
Harley's talking about like a long episodic journey where like there's montages of him planning how to do it.
I don't
like,
care if
he's
it
like
would
in a
take
weight
a
room
year.
working out and is just ready to murder him 10
I
years
don't
later.
care if it would take me 6 months, a year, 10 years. I'd kill you.
On Vader's shoot, he said he felt awful about everything. He even went to the hospital with Joe to like kind of support him.
Jake is pulling up for the biggest sigh in the universe.
Jake Banning's eyes just rolled out of his head. All right, fucking Christ.
But he claims that he was standing up,
yeah, he stood
talking
up.
to him, doing a couple somersaults.
And from all my Googling, Joe ended up fine.
Joe is this is based on 8 years of shoot interview word, but he was apparently still might be a police officer in Georgia.
So is this an accident or Vader being a bully? Because Vader breaks Jobber's back is the most clickbait title ever.
I feel like Vader already didn't care for people's well-being after his match. All he cared about was getting over and looking vicious and beating the crap out of people.
Yeah.
This guy didn't know how to bump properly and protect himself, so it was a perfect storm.
The one thing I give Vader credit for, after he hits the power bomb, he doesn't put any of his weight on him.
Immediately covers him.
They talk about it like he's talking shit to him, but he knows he's hurt and he doesn't put weight on him. So he knows he's hurt, but it's still that thing of like, if you knew the first one was bad, why'd you go forward with the second one so hard? Jake gave me a good head nod on that.
And then you go to the back and cry.
Moving forward from this blatant slander, December 30th, 1992, Vader beat Ron Simmons for the WCW title, again at a house show, which, whatever. From there, he'd pick up his feud with Sting, and this is when we get the motherfucking White Castle of Fear promo.
Oh my god, it's the best thing ever. It's the best thing ever.
This promo is a mix of something Adult Swim airs at 4 a.m. and and a 90s porno with no nudity or sex. Like
so Sting rolls up like Jeff Goldblum in Jurassic Park, asking, "Where's the White Castle of Fear?" I said that 10 times more dramatic than him. This is Sting saying it. Where's the White Castle of Fear? And we finally learn that the White Castle of Fear refers to the snowy peaks of the Rocky Mountains, where Vader is known and has created a lair with a bulldozer into the side of a mountain. How did he create this? I don't know. We enter the lair. There are sexy women of all races in black. There's food. There's fruit. There's goblets of wine. Sting enters. They all, Sting, it's Sting. Play the game, Sting. Play this game. Finally, they pull him in like they're going to love him and then dissect him. Vader finally walks in like the worst Desi Arnaz performance and says, "Who's the man?" He just screams that because that's a nice thing to do when you enter your home. Eventually, it turns into the eye-patched midget saying, "Play the game, play the game, play the game." Eventually, they do a tug-of-war over a flame. They both get extreme close-ups as they grunt and growl and of all like the wrestle crap, this might be top 5. It is beautiful. It is the White Castle. I think it's Daily Motion. I don't even think YouTube has this, but wow, it is amazing.
And this was all to set up a strap match at Super Brawl 3, which is a fucking awesome match.
It is so good.
It's just another great match between Vader and Sting, so I would check that out as well. And Vader won the match. In March of 93, On an overseas tour, Vader lost the WCW championship to Sting just to win it back 6 days later. Is this another case of America company thinking no one's going to find out about this shit?
Maybe, but also it's to probably pop business over there.
Right.
It is like, let you guys know that you guys are important and we're going to give you a title switch. And they would probably acknowledge it over there, but also in the sense of like, hey, you guys are important, and when we come over here, history could happen. So make sure you buy tickets the next time we come back, okay. Especially at this moment in time in the business. Bruce Pritchard was just talking about roughly this era of live events in general. WWF's business was down, Ringling Brothers, concerts, like everything in the States was down, but in overseas, business was good. So obviously, if you want to go over there and kind of pop the territory, you switch the belt, you switch it back. It's kind of an old trick that they would do when they would go to New Zealand and Australia. That's why Harley Race, like, it's disputed how many times he's held the NWA title, because I believe Jim Barnett was promoting over there, and the idea of, I think it was Jim Barnett or somebody, it was somebody else. I might have that confused, but they would do a title switch over there to pop the territory over there to help their business. Like, hey, when the champ comes over, you could see history in the making. So make sure you always buy a ticket to every show we do here, because you might see history happen.
It's because it's not even like the next run. It's like if you have a title change at the very beginning of the run, then they know that, hey, word will travel and you might sell tickets for the rest of the run, right? I mean, because that's what happened. But it was at the beginning, and then they switched it back at the end, so that on TV, no one was the wiser. Yeah. So it makes perfect sense. You pop it for the next run, but then you also pop it during the run for people like, hey, shit, it's happening.
Later in 93, Vader would start a feud with Cactus Jack. Who thought this would be a good idea? Hey, Foley has a death wish? Well, we found a genie.
Because Will Smith is still on television as a lovable person in a sitcom.
Oh, that blue fucking genie.
So, on April 17th, 1993, Vader would leave Foley in a whole heap of blood. If you watch this match, you'll notice Vader isn't wearing his usual Vader gloves. So Mick wanted Vader to legit puff his eyes and cut him up. So Vader legit puffed his eyes and cut him up.
Vader was like, I was going to do that anyway. You mean go according to plan? Okay.
Although Cactus wins by a countout, he would need 24 stitches. He would suffer a broken nose, dislocated jaw, and a concussion, or as Mick Foley calls it, Christmas morning.
I mean, yeah, please find this on YouTube. It is so fucking brutal. The moment when exclusive unedited footage from Mick's personal library pops up, you know you're in the mood for something scary.
The next week's no better for Foley, as Vader would powerbomb Mick onto a concrete floor, putting him out of action for quite a while.
Backing up a little bit, you want to hear a good story about the Vader gloves?
Yes, please.
And it's roughly about this time of WCW and like Vader's time in Japan. So I don't know where else we'll fit it in. You mentioned him without the Vader gloves being very dangerous. Mm-hmm. This is a good time for this story. There was a tour of Japan. It might have been during this time of WCW. It might have been the time when he was exclusively over there. And Matt Bourne and Italian Stallion were over there. And Stallion was over there. He was always a really good amateur athlete. And Matt Bourne was always very much a needler, in the sense that like he get people wound up and get them in fights, and he just sits back and watch. So
dick.
Yeah. That's why he was Doink the Clown. But anyways, Stallion had a good amateur background, and Matt Bourne knew that. And he knew Leon, it was all a gimmick. So Matt Bourne kind of got the two riled up and got them to wrestle around before one of the shows. And Matt Bourne was saying stuff like, I bet Stallion can take you down, Vader. I bet Stallion can take you down, Vader. And then finally they're like, Vader's like, let's go. And then they wrestled, and fucking Stallion took him down immediately. Immediately. And then like Vader kept coming and Stallion kept taking him down. kept taking him down.
Work on your defensive wrestling, Vader.
Over and over again, and then like he got over on top of him again. They're like, all right, let him up, and then as soon as like Stallion like got off of him, Vader came up like like a big bear, and then he started like punching fucking lockers and shit and got all fucking mad.
I destroy inanimate objects.
Yeah, he just like he threw a big fit about it, and then later on that night at the bar, Matt Bourne was like fucking needling Vader again, like Stallion took you down pretty good, yeah, like he's just trying to cause a fight in this bar, and then all of a sudden Vader just kind of stopped. He goes, yeah, I did, but would have been a different story if I would have had my Vader gloves on.
Why?
I don't know why a fucking grown man would say that. Oh no, you took me down in an amateur fight, but it would have been a different story if I had my Vader gloves on.
No, this makes total sense. I'm gonna say 2 words. It's gonna make total sense. Ready? Air Jordans.
I guess so.
But even to finish the story, fast forward years later, WWF Superstars taping. On the sheet, it was listed for Stallion to take on Vader and the WWF Superstars taping. And Stallion goes to George, he goes, watch, Vader's going to get that changed. 3 minutes before they roll tape, they change it. And Vader goes over to Stallion and he goes, yeah, they changed it because, you know, you're a bigger guy and I'm a bigger guy. They want me to, like, beat up a smaller guy. That's why we're not going to wrestle.
That's what looks better.
Yeah.
Since we're around this territory, I want to talk about... watching these matches, I saw Vader do the choke slam a lot. It was never called the choke slam, but he clearly grabs the throat and slams him down. And it's like Vader is not at the forefront of the choke slam innovation shit. I don't know if you guys looked at anything, but if you look it up, basically Heyman is credited with it for giving it to 911 and ECW, but he didn't do that shit till '94. Akira Tao, I don't know if I'm saying his last name right, who was All Japan Beast. He was doing the shit, so he might be ahead of it. Do you guys remember when Undertaker started doing the choke slam? That was like...
I feel like it was late 90s.
Yeah, I mean, that one...
Yeah,
it was past the Tombstone.
He was adding to his repertoire.
Right. So, I mean, I think Vader, when we talk about the choke slam, he should be at least the innovator or considered for it. Which president is credited with inventing the choke slam? President, I said that correctly.
Abraham Lincoln?
Yes! Boom!
Oh, I guess that makes sense.
Yeah, I was going to say, we all know that old Abe was a wrestler, and there's many biographies where Abe has been talked about. I got some disputing reports, but I think there was one where he got mad at his opponent who had been cheating or whatever, and Abe grabbed him by the throat, pulled him off the ground, shook him, and then slammed him to the ground. So, old Honest Abe, the inventor of the choke slam, maybe number 2, Vader.
That means the Gettysburg Address is technically a shoot interview. So back at WCW, next Vader would feud with fresh off the boat from WWF, Davey Boy Smith. They would professional wrestle each other at 93 Slamboree for the title, and Davey does a lot of cool shit in this match.
Oh my god, he does.
He does a delay vertical suplex on Vader, which is nuts.
It's nuts.
He lifts Vader on his shoulders from the mat, like so basically squats from the mat.
It's the electric chair spot.
Yeah, there you go. He also catches Vader in the corner like it's nothing, like no big deal, just catches him. Vader loses this match by DQ when Davey Boy hits him with a chair, so obviously Vader keeps the title.
It is pretty physically
really like that's like I feel like Davey's first shot at the main event, and he did it. He held his own.
It was impressive.
So while still champion, Vader teamed up with Sid Vicious, calling themselves the Masters of the Powerbomb.
Which, if you can go on YouTube, find the actual press conference for the announcement of the tag team, which includes confetti and people in the crowd with signs and cheering. It's fucking stupid.
Sid and Vader would face Davey and his partner Sting at Beach Blast in July. Who would you rather have as a tag team partner, Dynamite Kid or Sting? Tagging with Davey Boy Smith.
In a dark alley or on pay-per-view?
Yeah, both. Obviously, Dynamite in the dark alley.
Yeah, obviously Dynamite in the dark alley. Yeah, and pay-per-view would be Sting. That's how I'd do it.
Okay. For Beach Blast, they also made a little movie promo for this, and I am a worse person now for having this enter my brain. is one of the worst things I've ever seen in my fucking life.
All right, so Eye Patch Midget is back.
Pro wrestling is the last realm of where saying midget is okay, so you calm down out there.
Oh, yeah, it's true. Davey Boy and Sting are playing volleyball with a bunch of kids on the beach because, that's how that happens. Colonel Parker, Sid, Vader, they all drive up in a speedboat that they rented but didn't give the down payment on. They come up, the Eye Patch Midget comes in with a shark fin on his back. He's swimming in. We got the Jaws music. And then he scares some kids, and they go, and they run off. And then little Midget Man runs over and plants a bomb. Yes, a thing that can kill people on a speedboat. And then the little kids run off, and they tell Sting and Davey about what they just saw with the little shark Midget Man. And then Sting and Davey are really confused, like, oh, we better go check that out. They get to the boat in time to realize that it's going to blow up and kill them. So they jump off the boat just in time for the worst CGI bullshit since Ed Wood or Yui Bold created anything. And then there's a moment of dramatic silence because they're in the water and we don't know if Sting and Davey Boy are alive. We see shots of little kids with tears running down their face. We see everyone trying to deal with the fact that two of their favorite pro wrestlers might have been brutally blown up. And then all of a sudden, Davey Boy and Sting jump out of the water and they're alive! But yeah, the match is pretty good.
I thought the match was cool because it was like so 90s wrestling. It was Davey Boy with the dreads. It's Vader, who was such a big deal in WCW. It's 90s Sting. It's Sid, who looks amazing.
Yeah,
it was real cool.
It's fun.
I don't like the ending of this match though because Vader hits Davey with a 450-pound moonsault. And then like 10 seconds later, he's rolling up Vader with a crucifix for the win. I just think guys from this era didn't care about selling and they just wanted to get their spots in.
It's true.
Just before 93's Halloween Havoc, Cactus Jack would come back. And someone in the back was like, hey, remember when he almost died? Let's finish that. Vader would face Cactus Jack at Halloween Havoc in a Texas death match.
Spin the wheel, make the deal.
This match is brutal for a Mick Foley match. Like, it is nuts. The rumor around this match is that Mick hated where he was in WCW and in pro wrestling, and Mick wanted to take a spot so brutal that it would legit end his career so that he could collect on his insurance policy, and Vader was like, all right.
I've done it once, I'll do it again.
Yet again, I'm doing that anyway. I mean, the spot, which is just brutal as shit. Cactus used to have this spot when he worked with Vader where he'd get on his back and try to work for a rear naked choke sleeper type thing. They're on the ramp, which if you remember in the early 90s WCW days, that there was no give. It was a hard wooden ramp. And so Cactus gets on Vader's back, and with all of Vader's might and his 450-pound megaton weight, he throws himself back, and the fucking thud of Cactus smacking into the ramp and Vader crashing down onto him is just sickening. It really makes you have that moment where being a wrestling fan, like, oh shit, he's dead. Like, it's really concerning.
Vader eventually wins this match when Harley Race stuns Cactus Jack with a fucking taser.
It's so stupid.
And that keeps him down for the 10 count. After that, Vader would win 93's Battle Bowl Battle Royal, which is now its own pay-per-view at this point. Watch out, Royal Rumble. Then we get to 93's Starrcade, where Vader was originally scheduled to face Sid Vicious after the Masters of the Powerbomb split up. And that is where we will pick up Vader Part 2. So, anything before we get out?
Nope.
Fuck you, Jay. God damn it.
Nope. Stay tuned for the next episode when I do my closing arguments. A case against Leon White.
Notice he didn't say final thoughts. I want to point that out.
Closing argument.
So if you enjoyed this episode, head over to Patreon where you can support our show. Patreon.com/10bellpod. You can also support us for free by leaving us a review or rating wherever you're listening. We're 10 Bell Pod on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and YouTube. 10bellpod.com. Shout out to Six Squirrel Studios for helping us on the tech side of things. You can find Jake at Man Scout Manning on all the social medias. You go over there, you tell him he's wrong. Micah is JTrotter27 on Twitter. I am Nicolessa on all the social medias. This is Tim Bell Pod. Now please enjoy this Patreon plug that I'm going to edit in here.
Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for listening to the 10 Bell Pod. This is the Man Scout Jake Manning letting you know if you really want to support the pod, why don't you support us on Patreon? And it's very simple to do. Just log on to patreon.com/and/or/. We don't know how slashes work. We live in a digital age, and you can just Google everything. And actually, you know what? While you're all in there Googling 10 Bell Pod on Patreon, why don't you Google what's the difference between a backslash and a front slash? So while you're there and you figure that mess out, make sure you log on to patreon.com/and/or/10 Bell Pod.